Hi, everyone. I'm Nicole Huckabee, and welcome to Conversations with Nicole. My guest today is Stacia Crawford. She's a director, writer, and actress who's made her mark in the industry with feature films and TV episodes, premiering on major platforms like Netflix, Lifetime, and more. Stacia has a passion for storytelling, coaching, and creating impactful content. You are going to love hearing her personal story. You can learn more about Stacia and her production company at sagebellfilms.com. I really hope you enjoy our conversation. Let's get started. Hi, everyone. Welcome to Conversations with Nicole. I am delighted to have as my guest today Stacia Crawford. She is a director, writer, actress, and so much more. I'm so happy to have you on the show. Thank you for joining me.
Oh, thank you for having me.
Well, your resume is so incredible. So go ahead and tell me a little bit about how you got started in this industry.
Oh, sure. I always like to say that I came out of the womb knowing exactly what I wanted to do, which was,
That's
be in this industry. I started off as an actor, and I still act. I really enjoy acting. I call it Hitchcocking. I Hitchcock in my own projects, but I also act in other people's projects, which is so much fun. And then about, I don't know, 20 years ago or so, I started producing. And I produced independently. I also produced with a small studio out in California, and a lot of those movies ended up on like Lifetime or Hallmark. And then in 2018, I took the jump. I had always wanted to be a director. I just felt like I had a lot to learn before I jumped into the director's chair, and rightly so. There's a lot to be learned. So I in 2018 I kind of got burnt out with producing. The company I was working for gave me a shot to direct, and my first movie ended up on Netflix for two cycles, and then my next movie ended up on Lifetime, and then it just kind of snowballed from there. And yeah, I've never been happier. I loved acting. I still love it, and I'm a writer through and through. So I write all the time. I mean, I've got notebooks everywhere, and half finished scripts and books. That I'll do that. My for as long as I live. But directing really enabled me to take all of my experience and my skill as a producer, as well as a performer and a creative, and put them together, and really come to a project from both sides of the camera, and I just love it.
You're so good. I've had the opportunity to be in a class that you were teaching for acting, and clearly I do not have that skill to do that, but I did enjoy being in the moment with the class and seeing how you led the group. So being able to know the acting and then being able to direct them, that has to be such a great combination. Like you said, you know it from both ends.
Yeah, thank you. And I loved working with you. It was so much fun. I because I'm a performer. I speak actor lingo, right? So like I'm one of the actors. So I'm definitely an actor's director. But I also know how to keep a movie on time and on budget. So I work really well with producers because it's not about ego. It's not about wanting what I want. It's about really what's best for the project, all together as a whole. So I also am I really enjoy coaching. I enjoy working with actors. I enjoy working with filmmakers, working with youth. As a coach in all different facets of life. So it's when you love something so much, I think it's easy to be good at it because you just love it with every ounce of your being. So
It's totally obvious when I was in the room with you how much you love it. And you said the word ego. And when we all think about actors and movies and that world that is looks so glamorous and all of that. The word ego does seem like it would play a big role, but it sounds like you do a good job of bringing everybody together, and that has to be key to have a good product in the end.
Yeah, I mean, we all need a little bit. Oh my gosh, my puppy is making noise in the background. Hold on, Moxie,
Just saw the puppy come up. I kind of like it. So is
Moxie,
that
come on.
Moxie, just let her stay.
Anyone who's worked with me knows my dog because I bring her to set.
I
Just
follow you on your socials and I'm like, there's her pups.
I put her in a movie once. I put her in a Lifetime movie. Well, producers and I did, and she hated every second of it. But yeah, she's got her own little screen time.
That's
Um,
so
so yeah, thank you. I mean, everybody, in order to survive, we need a little bit of ego, right? That gives us the courage, the moxie to actually get out there and acting is so it requires you to be so vulnerable that you have to have a little bit of courage. I had a coach once say to me, "You have to have a thimble full of courage in everything you do," and it's true.
yeah.
But it's Hollywood. We all know the stories. There are a lot of less than desirable people that are in the industry. So when most of the people that I work with and I love to work with, we're all about making the best possible product, right? And so it's not about it's about we, and it's very much filmmaking is very much um, a collaborative forum. So when you allow other people so when I go into a film, I know exactly what I want, but I also leave this much room for other people to come in to bring their genius, right? So if I was micromanaging and trying to control every aspect of the film, it it wouldn't serve anybody because there are other people. Clearly I'm not a cinematographer, and clearly I'm not a gaffer, and so letting other people do their bring their brilliance, including the actors, allows me to just focus on what my job is, which is kind of keeping everything afloat.
Yeah, no, that makes perfect sense. So talk a little bit about some of the films and television series that you've produced. Drop a few names and maybe tell a few that you really enjoyed working on the most.
Yeah, I mean, every film is like they're like my babies. Every
Yeah.
film is a story. Every film has a special place in my heart. Even there's been a few that were very 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 difficult, but I still remember them. My probably um my first film was a director. They change the titles often, so we start off with one title, then when it gets bought it goes to a different title, and then if it goes overseas it's a different title. But this one was called Hidden in Plain Sight, and it was on Netflix, and I just loved every minute of every day on set. I mean, yeah, of course, there's always an issue, right? There's always, we're running against the clock. We don't have enough money. Locations fall out. People get sick. But that was my first. It was just my first step into my purpose
Yeah.
and my absolute bliss. So even when things were really tough, like I could look at it later and go, "Oh gosh, how did that happen?" I was so happy on that set. I was so happy. So that one really, that one has a special place in my heart. And then I did a kids movie that was just uh, full of love, full of heart. It was called A Unicorn for Christmas, and it was on Hulu last year, and it's all over the place. And it got it was a lower budget, kids movie, very simple, no big hijinks, no big plot twist or anything like that. But we got to work with animals and kids, and that one is really and in Christmas. So that one was all about believing and believing what you can't really see or you don't really know, and the magic of Christmas and the love of family. So that one will always hold a special place in my heart. That's called A Unicorn for Christmas. And then
I
I
love
got to work with Tosca Musk at Passionflix last year. That was my yeah, I directed 10 episodes out of 2 seasons for a TV series for her, and that was incredible. It was incredible. Another wonderful, wonderful experience. Amazing actors. I loved working with Passionflix, and yeah, it was great.
I love to hear just the excitement in your voice. I've, to talk to listen to you talk about your experiences. You feel like you're in the moment of exactly what's happening. Is it more difficult to work with adults than children, or children than adults, or does it just depend on the people involved? I would think there's a difference there when you're working with children versus adults.
Yeah, that's a great question. I I mean both, right? I love working with kids because usually they're so new at it that they don't know what they're not capable of, and kids have this incredible superhero spirit. So really allowing them to kind of transform and to me it's just wonderful to watch that. I to date never had any issues with, you always hear, oh, don't work with kids or don't work with animals, and I've worked with both, and I had no issues with that. And I don't, I really, I really don't have anything bad to say about any of the actors I worked with either. I just think as we get older, like with any relationship, right? Like as we get older, we sometimes, we have bad days, or, doubt creeps in, or insecurity. And so sometimes the adults are a little bit, they're, believe it or not, requires a little bit more time
Yeah.
directing them than kids, where I can just sit back and let them do what they do. And it's
Yeah.
amazing how they can memorize lines. I mean,
Listen, I am in awe of people that memorize lines. That did
yep,
not
me too.
get that part at all. That was really difficult for me. I worried so much about messing up that I don't think my brain could turn on to doing it very well. But so kudos to the kids that can do it. So what is something that you haven't done that you would like to do?
Well, so I really, I typically work in like the thriller genre, and I love that. My background is law enforcement. My parents were law enforcement, and I studied to be a CSI. So I definitely have that analytical brain. So I love thrillers. However, I really want to focus more on those feel good movies, those, inspirational movies, the movies where people just find miracles in everyday life. So to me, that's it's just where I am in life, and it's just the stories that I want to tell. Of course, I'll work on whatever comes my way, as long as the story moves me in some way. As long, if it's people I want to work with, if it's places I want to go, if it's really, if there's heart in the story.
Yeah.
But I want to work on a Western. I'm a big horse person. I've never worked on a Western.
Okay.
And really to do more feel good, inspirational. It doesn't have to be faith based, but that would be great too. Those types of movies. Yeah,
I love that. I think our world needs more of that. Absolutely. And that sort of relates to what I'm doing in this next season of my life. I want to put good content out there that's positive and uplifting, because as a former news anchor and being in that particular field, I saw a lot of, sadness. And so to be able to bring stories like yours to viewers and listeners is something that warms my heart. So I think when we work with a passion that is our purpose, and they come together and they really sort of make beautiful music, right? And that sounds like what you're doing in your life, and I love that. And so, I just love being able to share people's stories like yours, Stacia, because
yeah.
well, so
Well, I think it's also important to talk about, you know, people with social media, and people look at like a body of work and be like, oh, she's doing this or she's doing that, and it's not always true, because a movie would take a couple months to make, and then a couple months to, if we're lucky, you know, let's just say 5 months, from beginning to end to make. But then we might not work for 6 more months or 8 more months. And
Yeah.
so even though from the outside it looks like actors or directors or producers are working all the time, we have down periods. I mean, I definitely have times where I'm like, what am I doing? Like, is this not my, like, because sometimes it just, we're out of work for so long. So I think it's important for us to remember as well as filmmakers, that, everything isn't just, I mean, I can't speak for the elite and the A-listers, because, I'm not, that's not my pool, but people at my level.
A-lister with me, girl, but I know
Yeah,
what you're saying.
thank you. But you know what I'm saying? Like, I don't know, because they tend to work more. But I know the people like in my and the level that I'm at, we call each other, we commiserate, we celebrate each other's highs, and we commiserate when we're all not. This last year for the strikes, I mean, it's been devastating, not only financially to most of us, but also, when your whole identity is wrapped up in who in what you do, because you love it so much. When that's taken away from you, and you have no control over it, it's a whole different mindset. So I think that's also why I want to do these inspiring stories, right? Because it's so, it touches all of us. Moments of questioning, what's our purpose, what are we here for, when's that next train going to come in, I want to jump on it.
How is it that you get to the level where you don't have to uh, work that second job? People that are trying to be in this profession, they love it. They're working on their trade, and all of that so hard, but they're still working, the other job, but trying to get the roles or trying to get the directing opportunities. How does that work for those of people that aren't in the industry to understand how do you fill the gaps while you're waiting, like you talk about?
So many people work second jobs. Whether it's like working at a bar or restaurant or retail or real estate. Real estate's big, in our industry as well, because there's some fluidity there.
Yeah.
Um, but I think what happens is, with anything, the more you do it, the more you invest in yourself, the more classes you take, the more people you meet, the more auditions you go on. It gets to a point where you're starting to work more. The more focus you put on it, um, the more you're nurturing it, right? And I always say you can't expect anyone to invest in you if you're not going to invest in yourself. And
Yeah.
that
Yeah.
means monetarily and emotionally, and you know all the things that go along with investing. It always amazes me how people are like, okay, I'm here, I'm in Hollywood, I'm a good actor, so you should,
I'm ready.
yeah, I'm ready, so go ahead and put that, 50 million into me, which is great. I mean, that does happen sometimes, but you have to invest in yourself. So I think
Absolutely.
the more that we do that, and it's okay to take a break. It's okay to be like, okay, I'm exhausted. I need
Yeah.
to step back for a minute. I need to go work in a library for for
Yeah.
3 months, or I need to just not do anything, or I need to reevaluate. Or if you decide you don't want to be in the business anymore, it's okay. So allowing ourselves to change our minds, I
Yeah.
think, is really important as well.
Yeah. That's good advice. Good advice. Now you decided to actually come back to the Southeast as opposed to being, I guess, in the midst of Hollywood, so to speak.
Mhm.
Talk a little bit about that transition in your life.
Yeah, yeah. So, like I said, I was very determined, very tenacious. So I mean, I hit the ground running as soon as I graduated high school. I was in New York, and then LA, then back to New York, and I just didn't, like, I was a kid, so I didn't know what I couldn't accomplish. Right? You have to have that. You have to have that confidence and that belief. Um, so I went to New York City, and I was there for like 8 years. And really, I didn't do a lot of work on screen. I wanted to do theater, but then I can't sing or dance. I mean, I can dance, but not professionally. So I realized pretty quickly you have to be a triple threat, to be on Broadway.
Yes.
Now this is in the, late 90s, 2000s. So I was in New York for like 9/11, all of that.
Mm.
Um, but, I learned it was a lesson in life in New York City because it really taught me to live with need instead of want. Um,
Yeah.
I, I mean, I'm telling you, I went to school from morning till night. Like and we kind of found our tribe. I found my tribe. And there's a bunch of us and we would go to classes in the morning and then like we were always together. We were always supporting each other. Even like, if everyone was bartending, right? Or waiting tables. That's what you
Yeah.
do in New York. It's
Yeah.
like a joke. Oh, you're an actress. What restaurant?
Yeah.
And it's true. It's true. So we would always support each other, not only in the creative stuff we did, but we would go to each other's bars, or we would, we were just always together. And this is before cameras, before digital. This is when you really, I mean, like the cheapest was like Super 8 or Super 16, where you had to, get the money to get the film developed, and then you get it back and you realize it's out of focus or there's a hair in the lens, and totally different time.
Yes.
Um, yeah. So, but what it taught me about life, and it taught me about how to collaborate, how to really collaborate, and how to work in this business with other people. So, sometimes I look back and go, God, I really didn't do much in New York by way of my career, but I did so much work
Yeah.
um, as a
On
as
your
a as a
yeah.
person and as a creative and as a an actor and a writer. And I love to tell the story. People used to always say to me, well, what do what do you aspire? And I said, I want to be the female Ed Burns. I want to write, produce, direct, star. Back then, like
Yeah.
Ed Burns was the only one who did that, right? And certainly no females did that, or very few. And I always tell the young girls, oh, it was so different. It was so different when we were your age. um but you know what, I kind of did. I started writing, producing, directing, acting. I mean, obviously at a different level. He's at a much different level than me, but it's fun to look back and go, oh, I kind of spoke it. I spoke it
Yeah.
into existence. and
Yes.
and um
Get out there. That's right. You manifested it.
yeah, yeah. So, um, and I've never met him. I would love to meet him. I'd love to work with him. Um,
Well,
but
speak it. Speak it out. It may happen.
yeah, hey, where are you, Mr. Burns? Let's do a movie together. Um, so then I went to LA because I kind of felt like after I was in New York, for 9 years, 8, 9 years, and after 9/11, and after, yeah, I was there for the brownout, and I just was like, okay, life. I need a change of scenery. I went to LA and I sold everything and I showed up in LA and I stayed with a friend who had this beautiful place in Malibu. And I was so resistant to going to LA because it was terrifying. It was
Yeah.
big leagues. And even though I had some gumption, I knew how green I was, and I was young, and it was so far away from family. But I stayed with a friend, and then like within like 24 hours, another friend of mine called and said, hey, I've got some money I want to invest in a low budget film. So within a week or two of moving to LA, I was making a movie. And so I was like, okay, universe, I got it. I'm supposed to be here. Um, so that lasted about 12 years. And I did work a lot there. I did. But LA is like, you can't sneeze without it landing on someone in the business in LA. Like, you know, everywhere you go, there's somebody in the industry. Um,
Well, it is the industry, so that's the
it
epitome
is. It
of
is.
profession. Makes sense. Yes.
Yeah. And then so my family's in North Carolina, and there was a lot of film work in North Carolina. But then it all kind of moved to Georgia, which is a whole other topic.
Yeah.
Um, and so I was producing, and I was working for this company, and they didn't need me in LA because they had so many Los Angeles based producers. So they would send me on the road. So I was like, Chicago, Tennessee, I was all over the place. So I realized I had been, I had never lived close to family as an adult. I left when I was 17. Um, and so my family was living in the South, and I was acting a lot still. And my agent was in the South. And so I kept coming to the South, and I thought, I don't really need to live in LA. Like I'm not even working in LA.
Right.
So, um, I didn't get rid of my apartment for like 3 years. I subletted it out. I wasn't quite ready to, to
That
head
last
back
little
forward.
cleaning total to you.
Right, right. And then I went to LA, to Atlanta, and it's so busy there. And then I feel like, the pandemic really changed the landscape for so much. And now, and I moved back to North Carolina, so I go back and forth from Carolina to Georgia. But, I always thought moving back to the South would be a sign of failure, that I failed. And I
Mm.
realized that it's really a sign of success
Yeah.
to be able to live anywhere you want to live and still do what you love.
Amen.
So, yeah,
Yes,
yeah.
it
But
really is.
it took, going all over for me to realize that. And sometimes I question, I'm like, gosh, I probably would be working a lot more if I was in LA. Just by circumstance, right? Like I said, you can't, there's so much more. I went to so many movies out there, and Q&As and workshops, and it was a constant source of learning for me. And when you're at the Q&As, and when you're at the, workshops, and you're taking these acting classes, you're meeting more of your tribe, and you're meeting, you're just, growing your circle of collaborators. So, sometimes I wonder, like, oh, should I go back? And then I'm like, oh God, I don't know. I love the South,
Well, decisions. We've all been there about
Yeah.
what to do, but I think you just stay true uh to what you're doing now in your craft, and then I think the rest comes into play. And I think there's you have to look into your heart to decide what's really best for you, and second guessing is not healthy. So you have to be present where you are and enjoy where you are and let the things just happen, because they will happen. But it is hard thinking, I'm sure, about what you're missing, because you're like a sponge. You just want to draw in all the good information from everybody. I picked that up from you immediately when I met you, and then you are just a wealth of knowledge. So
Thank you.
for you to be sharing that with other people now that you're in the Southeast is incredible too.
Thank
So
you.
yeah,
Yeah, I
you're
love
just
it. I wish I had someone like me when I was starting out, how different my career would have been. Now that doesn't mean, I worked really hard for it, and I believe you have to work really hard. You have to work smart. You have to work smart. Um, but, so I believe everyone has to, things that worked for me won't necessarily work for you, and vice versa. So you have to kind of experience it on your own, but to have somebody who's been like, oh yeah, I've been there, I know exactly what that feels like, just to listen and
yeah.
commiserate, I think is pretty. I wish I had that when I was starting out.
I actually wish that I would have had someone doing that for me. So I knew in my career, as I was progressing, I wanted to be that for people coming along and help them to know some things early on, rather than have to just
Right,
follow their
yeah.
way through and say, let me help you, or let me give you this nugget, so that you can get on your path sooner and be better sooner, and not have to wait as long as I did to reach the
Right.
top.
Well, and it's
So
either will work for them or it won't, and it's just, yeah. And people, I'm amazed at how many people they don't want to hear it. So, okay, I don't usually give advice unless I'm asked, and even then I'm like, might not work for you. This is what happened.
yes, each to his own, and that acting and all of that is definitely not for everyone, but you have to figure out your path and what works for you. So that is
Yeah.
for sure. Well, listen, we could just talk forever, but I think we'll
No.
wrap it up. So as we close, is there anything that you would like to share with my audience that maybe they don't know about you, or maybe a bit of inspiration?
Oh gosh, it's funny. Like I said, I'm a writer, so I always write down all these quotes, and of course, nothing is really coming to me right now.
That's okay.
Other than, like I always say, just invest in yourself, and yeah, I mean, I think, yeah, and the only other thing I was going to say is, clarity is powerful. Clarity in who you are, what you want, how you're presenting yourself to a room of casting directors, how you're showing up on set as a performer, as a collaborator is so important. Just being really, really clear. That doesn't mean, of course, we all have our moments where we're, a little cloudy, but really being, clarity is powerful.
That's great advice. That's great advice. I love all of that. Well, you have just been a delight to chat with. I'm glad your fur baby could join us too
Thank
for the
you. She's asleep.
and
Thank you.
anyway, you're just a real treasure, and I appreciate your time. And I hope to see you soon, maybe.
Yes, yes, thank you.
All right, and that will do it for this edition of Conversations with Nicole. Until I see you again, I hope you have a great day.